Welcome to this channel. Mau belajar bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris dengan cara yang seru, santai, dan mudah dipahami? You're in the right place. Belajar kosakata dan ekspresi sehari-hari. Learn daily vocabulary and expressions. Dengarkan contoh situasi nyata. Listen to real-life examples. Subscribe sekarang dan nyalakan notifikasi. Let's learn together and have fun.
Welcome to the deep dive. You're here, I imagine, because you want to get right to the heart of things, yeah.
Cut through the noise.
Exactly, that's the goal. And today, we're looking at something maybe a bit unexpected as our source material. Indonesian language lesson notes.
That's right, for absolute beginners. Specifically, it's lesson 3 titled, Where Can I Find the Exit in Indonesia?
Yeah. And, on the surface, that sounds, incredibly basic, just practical stuff for a trip.
Right.
But we think there's actually a surprisingly rich layer of cultural and linguistic insight hiding in there.
Absolutely. So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to take this really simple beginner's dialogue and pull out those key nuggets, the cultural bits baked into the language, the grammar logic, things you might not even notice at first.
Things that give you a real feel for the culture. And the sources are straightforward, just these lesson notes. Dialogue, vocab, grammar, a bit of culture.
And focusing on beginner stuff like this, it often reveals really fundamental things about a culture, how it structures communication.
It's a great way to see how language and culture are just, inseparable. Even at level 0, pretty much.
Totally.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core of it. The dialogue, it's short. Between Edie and Buwati. Starts with Edie asking,
Apa ini?
Right. And Buwati answers, Ini puthon beringin.
Okay, so straight away, first exchange, you get some core words. Apa, that's what.
Yeah.
And ini, this. Then Buwati points to the ini and says it's a puthon beringin.
Which the notes tell us means banyan tree.
Exactly. And even there, with just this and banyan tree, we're already touching on something culturally interesting, as we'll get to later.
Definitely. Then Edie asks, apa itu? See, he switches from ini to itu.
This to that, and Buwati says, itu keris?
And here the notes add a little explainer in parentheses. A wavy dagger?
Yeah, which is interesting. They felt the need to add that, right? It flags it.
It does. So just question and answer, you get a new word and a hint about a specific cultural object.
And a keris isn't just, at any dagger. They often have this spiritual significance, family heirlooms, symbols of status, things like that.
So even that little parenthetical note hints at a much deeper story.
It really does.
Okay. The dialogue moves on. Edie asks again, apa ini? Back to this.
And this time, Buwati's answer is ini keluar, which connects right back to the lesson title. Keluar, meaning exit.
Yep. Oh. And Edie finishes with, begitu, which is basically...
I see, like figuring something out.
At the classic aha moment, yeah.
So, alongside this dialogue, the lesson gives us the vocab list. We've got apa what? Ini this, itu that. Pretty clear.
Standard stuff. Then there's bu, explained as a kinship term, like Mrs., but specifically for addressing an older married woman politely.
Which immediately tells you something about social norms,
yeah.
Respect for elders.
Definitely. Then pintu keluar is exit. But the notes also say to go out, hinting keluar can be an action, a verb. Ah, okay. Not just the place itself.
Right. And finally, bijitu. I see. It's like that. So these aren't just random words. They're tools for, basic interaction within that cultural context.
And the lesson actually digs a bit deeper into keluar, doesn't it? Looking at where it comes from.
It does, yeah. Which adds another layer. Apparently it's made up of ke, meaning to, and luar, meaning outside.
Outside makes sense.
Exactly. And the notes point out that while it can literally mean to the outside, it's mostly used as the verb to exit, to go out.
So even a simple word like exit has this kind of internal logic, this structure built from other concepts like direction.
Yeah, it's not just a label you stick on something, it's constructed.
Interesting.
And then the grammar focus, looking closer at ini, itu, and apa.
Okay.
The notes say, look, ini is like this, itu is like that. Simple proximity, near versus far.
Standard. But then they add this really neat point about itu.
Yeah, this is cool, since Indonesian doesn't have a word quite like the...
No definite article.
Right. Itu can step in and do that job, but only when it comes after the noun.
Okay, so give us the example.
Warung itu. It could mean that coffee shop, pointing, or depending on context, it could just mean the coffee shop we were already talking about.
Huh. That's actually really efficient, isn't it? One word, two grammatical jobs based on position.
Very efficient. It shows how the grammar can be, quite pragmatic. It gets the meaning across without needing extra bits, maybe compared to other languages.
You don't need a separate the if that can handle it.
Pretty much. Then there's apa.
What?
Primarily what, yes, just like in English questions. But the notes also say apa can work as a question marker by itself.
So it signals that a question is coming.
Sort of. They show this with the example apa ini versus apa ini. Both mean, what is this?
Okay, so what's the difference with apa?
Adding that ka just makes the question maybe a bit more formal or emphasizes it slightly. It's like a little flag saying, this is definitely a question.
But both work.
Yeah, both are generally fine. It's just a subtle nuance showing different tools the language has for forming questions.
Gotcha. And to make sure this all sinks in, the lesson has sample sentences.
Which are pretty useful, actually. They bring it all together.
So we see apa ini and apa ini again. Clearly showing those two ways to ask.
Yep. Then itu warung, which is that perfect example of itu, meaning either that coffee shop or potentially the coffee shop.
Demonstrates the double duty thing.
Exactly. And then you get more practical phrases like bumau, jalan-jalan.
Which means?
Ma'am, do you want to go for a walk?
Yeah.
So you see how you can immediately use these bits in a real social situation.
Nice. And then directly related to the lesson title, di mana pintu keluarnya?
Where is the exit? Using pintu keluar and the question word di mana where, putting the pieces together.
Makes sense. And the answer given is harus keluar di sini.
You must go out here. Using keluar as the verb again, reinforcing that usage.
Good reinforcement.
And the last sample sentence circles back to the dialogue's end. Oh, begitu.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Emphasizing that acknowledgement, that moment of understanding, ties it all up.
But then the lesson does something I think is really smart. It moves beyond just the words and grammar.
The cultural insight section.
Yeah, called a mystical palace. And this is where you really see the language and culture link. It talks about the keratin in Yogyakarta,
which is a major cultural site. For locals and tourists alike, a sultan's palace complex.
Right, and it connects back to that very first bit of vocab we learned.
The Puhan Beringin, the banyan tree.
Exactly. The notes mention the current Sultan, Hamengkubuwana X, who's both Sultan and governor. Quite unique.
And it talks about the Agdidalam, the traditional court servants living around the palace. So it's not just a museum, it's a living place.
For sure. And then it highlights specific things inside the palace grounds. And guess what shows up again?
Let me guess. Banyan trees.
Bingo. A pair of them, described as mystical, flanking the southern square, the Alunalun Kidul.
Mystical. See, that adds a whole different feel to just learning Puhon Beringin means banyan tree, doesn't it?
Totally changes it. Suddenly it's not just a tree, it's got this aura.
Absolutely. Banyan trees often symbolize things like, longevity, unity, sacred ground in Indonesia. So putting it in lesson 1, that's quite telling.
It suggests even everyday things might have this deeper cultural resonance, maybe even mystical, like the notes say. Makes you wonder why that tree is one of the first things you learn.
It really does. What stories are attached to those specific trees?
And the notes also mention a monster head chronogram, whatever that is, on a gate, plus displays of heirlooms, cultural shows.
Paints a picture of a really rich heritage connected to that place.
So connecting it all back, this basic language lesson, it's actually a window, isn't it?
Absolutely. A window into values, history.
Right.
The fact that the banyan tree is right there at the start is probably not random. It reflects its importance, culturally speaking.
So wrapping this up then, we started with a super simple Indonesian lesson, asking, what's this, what's that, where's the exit?
Basic stuff. Learn about ini, itu, apa.
But we ended up getting this real glimpse into Indonesian culture, the keratin in Yogyakarta, the Sultan, these mystical banyan trees.
Yeah, showing how much can be packed into even beginner level language.
Which brings us to, I guess, our final thought for you, the listener.
Thinking about those banyan trees, the keratin, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other simple words or phrases, maybe in other languages you know or are learning, hold that kind of deeper cultural meaning?
Yeah, things that seem mundane on the surface, but actually unlock a whole set of beliefs or traditions.
Exactly. It really drives home that learning a language isn't just about memorizing words and rules. It's kind of a key, isn't it?
A gateway, yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding a whole different way of seeing the world. Something to think about.
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe.